now we got phase 3 coming up. So what is your feel, your general feel on phase 3? What you think that's coming up like?
Yeah, I'm kind of worried about like how they're gonna tune the armor basically. Like a warrior probably is going to be more and more amazing unless they keep on buffing the other classes, or they, not say warrior's super amazing at the moment, but I'm worried about armor. I think that they're gonna have to probably make the armor high, otherwise we're gonna take off. Even though we got like crap runes, like if we get decent gear, just gonna scale very hard. What are you thinking?
Yeah, like people always, I get on the first side of it, I get people that say it is boring, it is lazy to give us 10% more damage, but I think people don't quite fully understand that for a warrior 10% more damage is not 10% more damage. It's more than 10% more damage, because you get 10%, like not 10% quite, but you get more rage, which is more damage, which is more rage, which is more damage. It's like a positive feedback loop. I think, if I'm being honest, I think just Blizzard got like the guy on the basement to map out how much damage the warriors are gonna need, and they are so scared of warriors being busted again that they just give us exactly what they think we're gonna need and nothing else. They don't even want to deal with like theory crafting a new ability at this point.
Yeah, I hope that if they're going to do weird stuff with armor, that instead of making if they're going to make bosses have different amounts of armor, I think it'd be better if they make the earlier bosses have high armor than the later ones. Because like right now in Nomer, I think there's a problem where you're worried about not being able to complete the last few bosses, and that's where warrior's the weakest, and so I think that's like what makes people be worried about adding people to raid groups. But if instead it was like they sucked at the start and that balanced them out, I don't think people would be so worried about taking a warrior to raid. So that's the kind of stuff I'm wondering.
Yeah, like transparency right now. Do you think the warrior? How do you think the warrior is? Because like from my point of view, even though people whine and complain and tell me the prot warrior in particular, I get that a lot. They all tell me it sucks. I always thought this is fine. You know, like it's not great, but it's fine.
Warrior's not probably in a great spot for the average player. Definitely if you look at the best warriors, they're doing excellent damage on all the low armor fights, and they're doing like just fine on the high armor fights. I think it'd be cool if they threw a bone to prot warriors, because it would be so easy. Put flat threat on Sunder armor, like just juice the crap out of it, and then make holding threat be trivial. I think that that's a good thing about retail. Just make threat trivial, and then people will take any tank. And I don't think it really hurts the game either. I think like fighting for threat's a lame mechanic, and DPS don't like it anyways.
Yeah, like that's the thing about the warrior too, that like you can still tell a good warrior from a bad warrior if threat is not an issue, because like they are all raising DPS. At the same time, like for example, I am very disappointed in the phase 3 runes. We're gonna dive into that later, but like the shield slam, like they gave us free shield slams. I was hoping, like, that's not the problem with shield slam. Nobody thought, oh my god, shield slam costs way too much rage. The problem with shield slam is that it doesn't scale with anything. It scales off your block value. It's absolute garbage. Like, just make it scale and like make us go pro. When I say Fury is the best build, people get upset at me like I'm saying I like it. I don't like it. I want to go pro, but that's just stupid though.
It'd be pretty easy to make a prot warrior that's balanced and fun. Even in Classic, like at level 60, I used to, as an Alliance warrior, I would go as prot and I could hold threat just fine on things like Zerging Thane, like where, you know, you just kill him right off the bat. And threat was fine, but I was able to, you know, take less damage. And people would say that stuff didn't work at all. And no, that totally worked. And, you know, doesn't have to be that good. You just gotta be able to hold threat.
I think like there's another big thing, like, and that is like our doing as well a little, I guess, but like people assume when we talk about the most optimal build for tanks that it applies to them, and for the most part, like, do you need to be popping Death Wish to hold aggro in a normal mom and pop guild of like 75 purple parsers? Probably not, okay? Like the insanity that you see at the top, and of course we cover it because like that's what you want to cover, the best thing. It doesn't really apply to most people to that level. Like, you can get away with a lot of bad stuff if you like it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, even like 99 parsers in the alt run I was in, it was really high 99s. Prot warrior won't be able to reliably pull or hold threat, you know, or like making less threat means that if you have bad RNG on pull, you have a lot larger of a chance of losing the boss. But you can have a guild where the best players, like the top half, gets like 99 averages, not like 99.5s, and hold threat just fine at level 60. So I think maybe they should focus on making warrior fun in PvP, and then just give like a gajillion flat threat to prot. Because if they had just had a lot of flat threat, they wouldn't have to worry about breaking PvP or making the DPS specs OP. Like, just flat threat on Sunder. DPS warriors want Sunder anyways, so it's not going to cause a problem.
Yeah, and also there's another thing there, right? Because like I'm gonna tell you guys in the chat that something about how flat thread works, right? Like for example, shield slam, it has, I'm making the number at 400 flat thread. That's just any shield slam of any damage will do 400 thread, and then it has the damage, okay? So if you're doing something that most of the threat is the damage, like Devastate or like, I don't know, Bloodthirst, when you get a damage modifier, that is like you get that amount of percentage in more threat. But when you get extra threat, but it doesn't affect the flat threat that you get. So like one reason that you could get people to go back to being prot is that would make Defiance a lot better if most of your threat didn't come from damage but flat values, because Defiance affects the flat values and the band damage bonus doesn't affect the flat values. That's another way they could have faced it. I agree with that 100%.
I don't feel like Blizzard's done a very good job of being creative with the warrior, because I understand that they're worried about the scaling. I kind of think that they should, if they think it's very, very hard to balance, they should kind of do what they did in Nomer, but just flip it, like make the early bosses harder, make the later bosses better for the warrior, and then just focus on PvP. Like I think it'd be cool if there was a rune that gave you a 3-second CD on Shield Slam and made it like dispel an extra magic debuff. That'd be interesting for PvP. Like if you could just do 2 dispels like every other global. I don't think that'd actually be all that good since it's not like arena, but maybe that'd be interesting to people. You know, just weird shit like that, and then they can just stay away from the PvE runes. Like maybe Warrior just gets bad runes in PvE and like we're carried by the rage system. I don't think people would be too upset at that, but maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know, I remember the Rat of the Lich King, like Swifty was being prot on the PvP stuff and he was doing like 15k shield slams. Bring that back. I'm all over that. I'm going prot right now if that's the case.
When I was a kid, there was a prot pally healer, prot warrior DPS 2v2 teams. Not to say that was super fun for the game. I don't know if anybody ever played against that. It was like pretty cancer, but you know, there's ideas where they could balance warrior in PvP. Doesn't even have to be very good. Just make it like a little bit better in my opinion, because I don't really feel like it fills a niche at all. Although I'm not super into PvP myself anyways.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of ways to like they could go about it, and like what you're saying, I just think they don't want to mess with it. I think they are so scared that it's gonna backfire, because it is very clear from the way they designed the Hunter in particular that honestly, I think they got no idea of how the class is gonna look like once they do it, which is absolutely outrageous, right? Like Classic is a fairly simple game. You can calculate the damage they are gonna do on a calculator, on an actual freaking Casio calculator. But yeah, I think they are like so not confident in their ability to like see what the warrior is gonna do that they just gave up on it, and they just say, okay, all the classes are doing 15% more damage, so we're gonna give the warrior 15% more damage in flat runes and screw everybody else, which is not my cup of tea, but I guess it will work.
Yeah, I wish they would like do stuff such as they could hit up Guybrush, the guy who made the warrior sim, and talk to him and just make him sign an NDA so he doesn't like talk about stuff. You know, like probably they have to pay people to like get them to spend their time, but guys like Guybrush or any of the sim creators, they 100% know more about the combat system than anybody who works at Blizzard, because like the amount of code that like represents the sim for warrior DPS is tens of thousands of lines. I doubt anybody at Blizzard knows that much about that system. It's probably abstracted, and they're like, I don't have to touch that, so I'm not going to learn it. Because that's how I was when I was a programmer at Microsoft. Like, you don't go learn extra. There's too much to learn. You gotta pick.
My favorite part about that sim is that it is so complex that it is not even an equation. It's not like increasing your damage on Devastate will increase the damage in the equation. No, he like literally, it's like the name, he literally like runs a hypothetical scenario of the warrior doing DPS, and he runs it like 10,000 times over, because that is easier than making an equation for it. I thought that was hilarious. The warrior is ungodly complex when you really look at the tiny details of it, because everything interacts with everything. There is very few classes that work that way.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder what like a rogue simulator would look like, because they're probably the next most complex class to sim just because it's melee, but they don't have rage, so I feel like the complexity of it is probably way less. Like
if you are not like into a warrior and you look at it and like at face value it makes a lot of sense, but you think, yeah, I would rather get a new ability, but the warrior doesn't get 10% more damage. The warrior gets 10% more resources and damage.
Yeah, when they said that we got consumed by rage in before SoD came out for Phase 1, I was like, oh my god, what the hell are these guys doing? Giving percent damage modifier is so silly. They should like warriors, if you give them, especially now that we already are able to use half our globals, they should give us abilities, because abilities will be very incremental damage increases. Unless it's like the abilities they've given to casters, which totally outclass their standard moves, like that's different. But warriors, like, give them another variety of swing your weapon, do 5 more damage. That's easy to balance.
Yeah, in the worst case, it's a lot easier to take away, because like when you take away 20% extra damage from people are like gonna riot. That's what I think like the main problem with No Meregan is right now. It's not that the warrior is wrong, it's doing bad. The warrior is doing great. It's doing like, it's an upper A tier class right now. But like, if you give them like all these busted things on phase 1 and then you take it away from them, like they took away Raging Blow, they took away Consumed by Rage, they took away, I don't know, what else did they nerf? They probably nerfed something else, I don't remember anymore. They nerfed Devastate to hell and then they buffed it again. Devastate got like, lost like 2/3 of its damage overnight. That was hilarious. Yeah, no wonder that the warriors are mad even if they are doing fine.